Boy, it's time now for another episode of Mr. Nailsin's Thursday Comics. Well, this time I did do the show on Wednesday. I did it live, but I was under the weather. Yes, I know, yet again. It had been a brutal couple of days, so I didn't get a lot of sleep. And when I don't, oh, good Lord. And so that's my excuse for missing the most obvious technical problem, at least one of them anyway, was when I was sharing these images, I forgot to switch it over to the next one. So all anyone saw was my coverage of this particular issue of Absolute Superman. And then I'm just babbling on about the other comics, which are several in number. And they're not seeing the important imagery. I realized the mistake at the end. I was like, oh, God. So I went through them, but I was, pretty out of it by then. And so all I could do was apologize, read some chat, and then ended it. I'm going to take that one down. And I apologize for all that foolishness. So this will be the redo of Absolutely Super. See, I put the question mark on it because I'm not all that enthralled with Absolute Superman. Even though the Absolute line for DC Comics has made quite considerable bank for them, most notably, of course, Batman, but the other titles are doing pretty good too. And it's just, well, it's something new and all that sort of thing, kind of, sort of. I mean, there's some elements here I've seen before. All they are is Elseworld stories, but they're an ongoing Elseworld story. And so, okay, that's the deal. Batman is just over the top, nuts and crazy, and so it has that to draw you in. Wonder Woman, of the three, narratively speaking, is better than these three titles. It's the more interesting one, but the art's kind of flat, even though it does kind of line up with the idea of Wonder Woman being descended from mythological characters and that sort of thing. And the art style is kind of similar to old drawings and whatnot. They did have a guest artist who was really good, but for only 2 issues. Man, I think it would have put Wonder Woman on top had they kept with art like that. It's not a nod against the artist. It's just not that exciting as compared to others. But it remains, narrative-wise, one of the more interesting takes of the 3 main superheroes of DC. Whereas Superman, story-wise, is at the bottom. It just isn't that great. And even though there's some high points here that I'll discuss, it doesn't measure up to the other 2. However, the artwork stands over all of it. It's the best of the batch. It's just really good. So it's got that going for it. And so I started it out and was pretty much already out of it from the beginning, and decided, okay, I'll buy up some Absolute Superman, check back in, and see how it's going and that sort of thing. So here we are, Absolute Superman #4. And he looks really upset. He's very angry all the time, and he's blasting away with his heat vision and whatever else. So here we have these people, the locals in these different countries, being interrogated, it appears, about their encounters with Superman, and they're trying to investigate him and whatnot. This is getting a bit tired. There's been quite a few comics who rely on this sort of thing, and a little too much. Sometimes it could, in one page, and you're probably all right. Usually it's like people being interviewed by media entities and that sort of thing, and giving their response to what happened or whatnot. But basically, this is, well, the evil capitalists are ruining the lives of these poor people, and it's all their fault. And now this super angel has appeared, and now they have hope, all that sort of thing. So now it cuts to this scene here where we've got one of the peacemakers, and I got it, she says you're Crenshaw, right? So I thought it would have been Chris Smith. He's the main peacemaker because in the real 3DC he is peacemaker, but Crenshaw, it's like no, that's Hank Henshaw. I was thinking he was, the cyborg Superman, but no, it's Crenshaw's a different. Okay, so anyway, forget about that. But here he's getting out of line. So Lois Lane comes in to teach him a lesson. So you see the guy, he's already a big dude. He's this tough soldier, and he's all armored up. But Lois makes quick work of him as she shoves this electrified baton into his mouth. And he's like, ew. And then she grabs his fingers and breaks them, and because, well, she's just that kind of a badass, despite being rather petite and toothpick limbed. But this big hulking dude is like, my fingers and my fried tongue or whatever, I don't know. And the other peacemakers are like, woo, don't mess with her. And yet I'm captivated by her booty. But anyway, so yeah, once again, it's not like she's wearing some suit that gives her extra strength or something like that. She just overpowers this guy. Yeah, sure. So anyway, we're back to the interviews, and now Lois herself is being interviewed because she finds herself captivated by Superman. She's still somewhat loyal to the Lazarus Corporation, but now she's starting to have some doubts. So yeah, in this universe, Lois is this super duper pooper scooper militarized agent following in Daddy's footsteps. And but now, after having encountered Superman, it's almost like she's some sort of investigative, what's the word? Oh, journalist. So she's trying to track him down. So here, the aftermath of a big battle in Pakistan, and you can see all the devastation and everything. And she's, I'm on your trail, Superman. I'm the storm, and all this. She's so full of herself. Here she's catching some of the dust left behind by his magic cape, which apparently has little sparkles in it. And yeah. Well, the idea being that the cape is made up of some sort of nanobots or bytes or what have you, and just flows around him like a cloud of dust. And yet, a little bit of it was left behind. So I don't know. As he goes, his cape will get shorter, I guess. And then eventually no cape at all. I don't know. There's just all these little things floating around. Imagine what you could learn from this technology if you grabbed a handful of that and put it under a microscope and all that. Anyway, Daddy calls. So he's like, hey, what's going on with you? And you get that discussion. So this one is a bit of a wrap up of what's gone on before and all that good stuff. And well, it still didn't wow me, but the artwork pretty good. The same narrative, capitalism is horrible and bad, and look what it does to third world peoples and all that sort of thing. Oh, it's terrible. But here comes Superman, who comes from the same situation as we learn through the flashbacks to Krypton and everything. So he really identifies with the oppressed and downtrodden, and so he's not a fan of the Lazarus Corporation. And pretty soon, I'm guessing he'll win over Lois Lane from that, but then that would be a man telling a woman she's wrong. I don't know how they're gonna square that. I don't know. Well, anyway, that's that issue. And for the art, you might want to check it out. But and you learn a bit about what happened to her father, stuff like that. And there's some reasoning there as to why Lois, not a big fan of the opposition, which is the Omega Men. And we learn more about them as we go. Not to be confused with the original Omega Men from haven't seen much about those characters in a long time. But that's what happens when you go into Elseworlds and alternate universes. The names might be the same, but the story far from familiar. Yeah. So that brings us to issue number 5. I thought at least the way they do it, it's definitely number 5. I thought it was number 6. Anyway, I don't know. Superman's catching himself on fire for some reason. So we flash back to Krypton and what that happened. And of course, things happen very differently in this universe on Krypton. So here's Jor-El fighting with the police. Yeah. But oh boy, their symbol is the Zod symbol. Does that mean that Zod's in charge? Well, he probably would have been in charge of the police and everything. But the symbols, like it's no longer the House of Ale or a symbol of hope and all that sort of thing. No, it means servant or slave. And he's the working class guy. He's the pissant. So that's what it means now. I don't know what the Z means, but I don't know. Soldier, maybe. So anyway, oh boy, this is how Krypton ends. So he's breaking out of jail. He got in trouble because he was trying to inform them that the planet is doomed. Turns out the elite already know this and are planning their own escape. So, and they don't want the public to panic because, hey, there's only so much room on the spaceships and everything. So basically the planet keeps erupting with kryptonite. So it's just belching kryptonite snot and boogers everywhere. And here it is killing the policeman. It almost got Kal-El, but he manages to get free from that. Then Lara shows up with the pickup truck and picks up her boys. And they're off, and they, run over the police. But, hey, look at it this way. They're doomed anyway, huh? So off they go. More people rioting and wondering, hey, what's going on? And they're just saying, hey, green stuff is blowing up. It's normal. Go back to your homes. And all of that. But you can see, things don't look great for old Krypton. So we get back to what seemingly is a familiar scene. Here's the Red Fortress of Solitude, yeah. And Lara is the engineer here. Jor-El works in the mines, and he does discover the signs of the planet is dying, and so they keep that intact, but he doesn't build the spaceship. Lara does. She's the engineer and all that. And that's why it's way better than any of the other Krypton rockets you've seen in previous Superman stories. But while she's, getting it ready to go, Jor-El does take time to enjoy her ass. He's like, damn. Yep. That's what captured my heart. It did. So anyway, they had this familiar exchange again. Oh my God, it's just that we can't save, if only it were bigger and could accommodate more people and all that. I know. So you think they're about to say we can only send Kal-El. It's all we got, and it's too bad, but it's the way it is, and all that stuff. No, they're bringing all their neighbors with them. They're just sad that they can't save more people, like more of Krypton, but they only got the one, RV to go into space. So that's tough, but a lot better than what all the other Jor-Els build, huh? So you should have let Lara build it. Yeah, you get that? Yeah, you better. So anyway, they have their moment. They're sad, and we'll just have to make do with the crowd we got. And Kal-El's like all sad. Mommy and Daddy are crying. Krypto's like, what? And then here comes more kryptonite exploding from the ground. And, oh boy, that doesn't look good for the forecast. So they're going to pile up into the ship and leave. Now, boy, it's all this nanotechnology that Krypton has. So their actual suits that they end up wearing, not what he's wearing there at the moment, looks similar, but it's a little baggy. But anyway, the nano stuff can be absorbed into the suit. So it can make the suit. It can make a giant spaceship. It can, oh boy, it just does everything. So as they're going, there's like this meteor shower from all the destruction and everything. And so the ship splits up into smaller little rockets. And each person or like couple, like Jor-El and Lara, they get their own. And some of the other people, they get their own. And Kal-El is left by himself in his rocket ship, and that's how they get separated. And he's off on his own. So it appears, seemingly, the rest of the surviving Kryptonians were lost and perhaps are no more. But odds are they're probably fine and they'll show up again for later adventures in Absolute Superman. So stay tuned for that, you know. So that tells you a lot about Krypton and how it ended and all that in this version of it. Hey, what about Smallville? You know, there's the taglines of the Krypton was, you know, no Daily Planet, no Smallville. You know, how would Superman turn out? So that's, you know, the deal here. But he does go to Smallville, but of course it goes very differently. This cover is somewhat misleading, but nevertheless, he does crash into Smallville. So here he is. Now the ship is just this single little jet in space. And here's poor Kal-El all alone. And it's saying 8 days. Well, 8 weeks, 8 months. It goes on. And he's losing his mind. And then this is a telling thing. The elements of Krypton would have been enough to explain his attitude on Earth and that sort of thing. Plus, he's pretty much in mourning and in a deep depression because, unlike being an infant who's raised by the Kents and really what he identifies with is humanity, here he's more like Supergirl's story where, you know, he was this, well, maybe preteen, I don't know, maybe 12 or so when he leaves. And this takes I think 2 years or something like that for him to travel to the Earth, something like that. And you can just all alone here, not knowing the only company he has is the AI talking to him and taking care of him and everything. But his mind would be so broken. And that could make him way more dangerous and probably more of the hallmarks of a villain or whatnot. But then again, if you can make a credible narrative that somehow he holds it together and he overcomes that, but it would give him a meaner, darker edge than other versions of Superman. But still, he comes out on the good side or something like that is what they're pursuing here, I would assume. And okay, that might work, but you can't just suddenly get back into form and he's, normal and stuff. He's not going to be. This guy can never become anything akin to the original Superman, which of course is the idea, but as an ongoing series and whatnot, that won't be the case. And this suffering that he's being subjected to as a child, well, you can only imagine how bad that could go. And so after a while, he's had enough and he can't take it anymore. But just at that moment, he's wanting to be thrown into space. He's lost everything, and it's so long, 17 months, 14 days. And of course, his hair is growing out. That's why he has long hair all the time. And but here they come. There's Earth and its yellow sun. And so now, just before he's ready to give up everything, the AI Saul says, "Hey, I found a planet that you can live on." Of course, as he gets exposed to the sun's yellow radiation, his body reacts. Apparently, this is extremely painful for him, and all that. Plus, the AI is not sure this is all that safe. But nevertheless, this is where they're going. And despite it all being nano stuff, I guess a good bit of it is just breaking up and stuck out in orbit. So this is it. There's no going back, there's nothing to go back to, but you're going to have to make your home here. And then we see the Kents, and we get more elements of what's going on Earth, where the Lazarus Corporation just rules everything. And the Kents farm is one of the few privately owned farms where everything else has been bought out by Lazarus. And their farm's failing because they can't get any rain. Yet the Lazarus-owned farms get lots of rain. Oh, what's going on? Yeah, well. So that kind of thing. And, the ship does crash, but it goes very, very differently. Even though there's still something of a relationship between them. There's some sympathy and whatnot, but it's not going to be they raise him and all that sort of thing. But you'll have to pick up your copy of Absolute Superman to find out how that unravels. It's not too bad, you know. It's all right, but it's just the gnawing thing is the idiocy of the obvious message there. It's rather tired, for the most part, tired. I mean, if you're stupid enough to fall for that crap, that's on you. You know, but nevertheless, that's all they got, really. Every now and then, some character moments come to the forefront, and you almost have an interesting interaction. So even though it's a series that I pretty much discarded, I'm giving it another shot here, and so far not enough to really win me over, and really none of them did. But even when there's a series that I'm like, I don't know, I don't think, and I usually bail, and which initially I did, and I'm trying to see what else is here. There's some diamonds in the rough, and this one, issue 7, is probably the best they've done so far. And even though it's extremely creepy, disturbing, and horrific, it's basically a horror story as it tells you the story of Absolute Brainiac here. They've been referring, Lazarus gives away who the ultimate villain is, and then they refer to all their communications and stuff, and the Peacemaker troops are questioned by this Brainiac algorithm that chooses, their choices for them and all that stuff. Of course, you knew it wasn't really an algorithm. It's the actual Brainiac. So what's the story of Brainiac in this universe? Well, this issue tells you the whole gruesome story. So most of it is the flashback of Brainiac, like they've been doing with Superman. But here you begin in the current timeline, and there's this facility that the Omega Men break into, seeking to damage the Brainiac algorithm, they suspect. And they have no idea what they're walking into, but they managed to get in. I believe, they have abilities to teleport, and it seems like they have boom tube technology and other issues, so that's interesting. Don't know what that'll appeal. I don't know. They're using the Omega symbol. They are the Omega Men, but is it to be connected with Darkseid eventually, since he did create this universe? Ostensibly by dying, but well. So anyway, there they are. They're, they're on their guard, and they're all heavily armed, but Brainiac. So how would Brainiac take out these guys? Well, Brainiac has the ability to shrink entire cities and keep them in bottles. So here he dispatches this soldier by shrinking his skin off. So, oh boy, that doesn't look too good. And the other are like, holy, So that's how that one goes down. And oh boy, he's, so he tells them, what did you do to him? And, why, I shrank his skin, of course. And they're like, oh my God. And so there he is zapping at them. This guy, he shrunk his bones, so he ends up puking his bones out. Yeah. And this guy's like, screw this. He thought he could, fight soldiers and stuff. He wasn't prepared for this. There's the guy's teeth. Jeez. So now he decides to attack this guy a different way. Well, he enlarges his hand. Yeah, and he's like, oh my God, oh no. And then enlarges, I don't know, viral entities, microbial. They're all over him. And so he's enlarged COVID, I suppose. And is just screwing with this guy. And it doesn't end there. It goes very badly from here as he does experiments on him while he narrates his own story. He says, boy, it's been a while since I had someone to talk to, And here he is. This is Brainiac of the Absolute Universe. And Of course, him having these sort of animal-like robot legs. Nothing new about Brainiac being part robot and all that. That was always the case. He really is more just computer program at this point, although he keeps some organic material around. Um, but it gives the whole story. And his is similar to Superman's in that he too has this journey that drove him insane. And you see the results here. One wonders, well, I guess it's just Superman's the better guy. Of course, he's the hero, so he doesn't go this far. But Brainiac becomes this horrific monster. It looks like his lips are gone, and all that's left is this black outline and everything. His brain sticking out that he experiments on. You see, he doesn't just do it to everybody else; he does it to himself too. So, and he keeps a journal tracking the time and the temperature and stuff. It's gruesome and horrific, but it is the best issue of the series, which I guess that does say something about this universe. And the whole narrative about him and all of that. And I'm sure there's more to come on Brainiac here, but a very, very, probably the most horrific and gruesome introduction of Brainiac in any version of Superman. And certainly, an inventive use of his shrinking and enlarging abilities on this poor bastard. But anyway, and a little bit more of Peacemaker in here as well. As Brainiac's been fixing him, you understand, and so there's a bit of that too. So this is the best one of the series so far. Meanwhile, back in Smallville, so oh gee, he looks upset. We do get introduced, probably the previous issue, maybe even not the 7th issue, but the one issue 6. Yeah, I think it was just issue 6. But anyway, we revealed that Jimmy Olsen, where's he in all this? Well, he's a member of the Omega Men. So, and then now the three of them together for the first time ever. And so they go back and forth because they're on opposite sides and everything. But ultimately, they want the same thing. Superman is attacked yet again. Brainiac has learned something about Superman that's very important, and that comes into play. And of course, the Omega Men. So now, meanwhile, the Omega Men have also decided to take down the main villain. So here's an Omega Man breaking into the home of Ra's al Ghul. Of course, Lazarus Corporation, you should have guessed who the main villain is. A Batman villain, but nonetheless, they like to shake things up. I don't know if that means Absolute Batman will be getting Superman villains, but maybe Lex Luthor will actually show up in Batman first. You never know. But anyway, here you go. There he is with his ponytail, but he's enormous. So he's done a little something to him. I don't know, maybe sampled some venom, whatever. This guy's stupid enough to go up against him alone here. I don't know. But maybe not quite as gruesome and horrific, although pretty close as Brainiac, but he does utilize the Lazarus Pit in a very creative means by which to dispatch this soldier, and it rejuvenates him to the age of an infant. And no, he's not going to put him up for adoption or keep him. No. The other soldier, well, he gets beheaded because Ra's al Ghul's good with the sword, you know. But anyway, there you go. The main villain revealed, at least for the current arc for the moment. And, well, you can kind of guess. Oh, geez, where that's going. Oh, boy. And that's it. Truly evil. Probably even more than the original Ra's al Ghul. And rules the world at this point. And it's going to take Superman to take him down. But a great weakness has been discovered. Can you guess what it is? Yeah. And so Superman is in a lot of trouble by the end of this. And we'll have to see what happens next. I don't have my copy of the next issue yet, but I will get it. And we'll check back on Absolute Superman. But all in all, there's maybe it's starting to pick up. Maybe that's the deal. But a lot of it just really lost my interest pretty early on. And a lot of that stench is still throughout it. But you just can't argue the art's better than the other two. And there is that. And maybe this team should just do horror books and forget about Superman. They could do that. But pretty gruesome stuff in there. But they're villains and they're evil, and that's what they do. So maybe that's the deal, that this Superman will kill. I don't see how he wouldn't after what he's been through and everything. And he goes up against people like this. And then you're not going to feel so bad about it because look what they did, you know, especially old Roz here. So that's all I got now for Absolute Superman. As for where it's going to go, is it going to catch its run finally and compete with the other two, at least quality wise? Because apparently it's doing all right. So I guess there is that. But a very dark Superman indeed. Of course, there's been, Soviet Superman, there's been Nazi Superman and all that. Yes, of course. But here, at the outset, he's supposed to be some kind of superhero. And so far, not really. He has protected and saved people. But he's a very, very messed up, broken, and angry Superman. So that's the only question. Of course, they'll get him there. But will it have credibility to it after all this setup, which is just really terrible torture that he's been through? Yeah. So couldn't he have at least said she had some sort of, I don't know, exosuit that gave her accelerated strength or something? Because I just can't stand the toothpick-limbed supermodel beating the Navy SEAL. That don't work. Not in any universe. Because Jimmy Olsen, he's got all this technology with him and stuff. You would think it would be very simple to say, oh, yeah, she's got that too. But, yeah. But in the end, yeah, you got two guys opposing Lazarus Corporation. So eventually it's going to be some men. Of course, they're Jimmy, the Omega Men. Yes, the Omega Men are led by a woman. So, so maybe she'll have to preach to Lois and Lois will suddenly see the light, I don't know. But anyway, that's Absolute Superman, for now.